happy Mother's Day today. As you watched that video, you saw what we're going through with social distancing. Please do not social distance with your mother today. Call them, tell her you love them. I'd tell you to take them out to eat someplace, but I don't know if you could do that and be safe. But anyway, honor your mother today. We are so thankful to have the mothers that we have in our church today, for the talent we have with the mothers. We are going to be led in worship this morning by a wonderful group of mothers from our church, and they're going to sing Wonderful, Merciful Savior. And I want you to just join in with us right where you're at your home, wherever you're at. And let's just lift the Lord up this morning and join in with our mothers this morning as they lead this song.
That
Bye.
Bye. Oh, thank you.
A sense of urgency. We are on a looming deadline. It's going to be a late night.
Wow, come on in and have a seat. I'm so glad that you're here. Just take time to breathe. I think that's a great thing to do for us in this busy, hectic world. Just take time to breathe and relax. And that's what I hope you'll do today as you're at our home. And I just really appreciate you being here with us on this Mother's Day. Again, happy Mother's Day to all of you. Relax a little bit. Let's talk about some things from the Word of God. You know, over the last few weeks, I've been teaching in the book of Leviticus and whatnot. And boy, when you get to Leviticus and some of that stuff in the Torah, it gets pretty intense because God's laying down some pretty strict rules, and people are dying when they're not keeping the rules, and it's pretty black and white. And one of the things I don't like about preaching through the Torah often is it can make a preacher sound pretty angry. And I'm really not, but man, when you get through some of those things and you see, like we talked about last week, Aaron's boys just rushing into the Holy of Holies like they owned it and God killing them, that was pretty intense. And so there's just a lot of narrowness in the law, which there needs to be because God is setting things up for Christ to come someday. And the whole point of the law was to be so strict and so difficult to teach people that they really couldn't do it. Now, it did provide order for their society, but ultimately they figured out that there's just no way they could completely please God because no one could keep the law, and that some better sacrifice had to come. And so, remember we talked about last week that when we worship God, we couldn't worship in just any old way, but we had to worship in spirit and truth. And so we were really strict about that, as we should be in the book of Leviticus and the law. But today it's a good chance to breathe. It's Mother's Day, and we're not talking about being less strict, but we're talking about a whole different spirit than the law brought to us. And I want to turn your attention to the coming of the Lord. John, I beg your pardon, 1:14, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father. And notice this phrase, full of grace and truth. So God has to be worshiped in spirit and truth. Jesus came full of grace and truth. So it's kind of like an exhale. When Jesus came, there was like an exhale. Now, notice that the word truth was there. It's still there. You just can't worship Jesus any way you want to. But there's some grace to it. And the whole point of the law was to say it's impossible for you to please God in the flesh. but you still need to keep the truth, but exhale a little bit. When Jesus comes, you exhale because he becomes that sacrifice for us, but we worship him in grace and truth. And there's a lot of tension there, but it's a good kind of attention when you're talking about, okay, we're going to be gracious and still abide in the truth. That's pretty tough. But really, again, we just want to talk about the difference between the law and the Lord. The law is impossible to keep. There's grace with the Lord. But the law's purpose, if you'll remember, was to be a schoolmaster or a teacher that would bring us to Christ. And so the schoolmaster was teaching us, you're never going to make it, you're never going to make it, you're never going to make it, you're never going to make it. But let us introduce you to this one who is full of grace and truth. He will be gracious to you, but he is the way, the truth, and the life. And so that's the Lord, and that's where we're at on this Mother's Day. I want to talk to you more about the grace and truth side of it as we relax a little bit of the tension of the law. We'll get back to that in the next couple of weeks and then head into the book of Numbers, which to me is fun as we start journeying through the wilderness with the children of Israel. When you look at the life of Jesus, Jesus is called and calls himself a lot of different metaphors. I mean, we're familiar with things like Jesus is a shepherd, Jesus is a door, Jesus is the way, Jesus is living water, Jesus is the bread of life. But one of the things that we overlook often is that, and kind of the Lord calls himself this, in Matthew chapter 23, verse 37, he says, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest the apostles or sent unto you, how often would I have gathered you, even as a hen gathers her chickens and you under her wings, but you would not. So an interesting thing here is you probably never thought about this, but Jesus kind of calls himself a mother hen there, and then he calls us chickens. Now I can totally agree with the chicken part, but it's an interesting metaphor where Jesus is saying to the city of Jerusalem, he's showing his grace but still being truthful. He's saying to them, I'm like a mother hen who wants to rescue the chickens, but they would not. And when the Lord said this, you'll notice that he said it with great empathy. He said, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem. When he says it twice, it's like a mother tenderly calling her child. Honey, honey, listen to me. Sweetheart, sweetheart, listen to me. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, listen to me. This little phrase of him saying it twice is really compassionate. He's showing his grace, but then he's going to tell them the truth. And the truth was that they would not come to him. But I think it's really cool that he compares himself to a mother hen and chickens. And, you know, today in our culture, we don't have a lot of knowledge of the relationship a mother hen has with her chickens. Her chicks, I know some of you in the church are raising chickens and chicks and all that sort of thing, so you could buy into all this and you would understand this. But we really don't see what this means per se. I was on a website of poultry this week, believe it or not, studying all this. And in the poultry industry, there's this phrase on one of their websites that says, our chickens today are nothing but egg providers. And what they were saying is we don't really see much of the mothering of mothers and chickens today, but they're just egg providers. And unfortunately, I think that that's a lot of the way mothers are today. They're just egg providers. They just make babies, but they don't mother their chickens. They don't mother their hens. But I know that in our church, we have a lot of great moms that do this. But this whole comparison, he's saying, I'm like a mother hen, and I wanted to gather you, Jerusalem, as a mother hen does her chicks, but you would not. And what's interesting about a mother hen, if you know this, is when she's attacked by herself, a snake or a dog or a chicken hawk or whatever, she will run for her life like crazy. But if the chicks are being hit, then she will stay with the chicks even unto the point of death. That's how much love that she has for the chickens. And in a minute, we're going to talk to a couple of moms that live with me that have that kind of love for their family, I can tell you. And I know that in your family, you will be able to say that my mother has that kind of love for us, that she would literally give her life for us if we were attacked. And so that's what the Lord's saying here. He's like, I'm like that mom, and but you would not. Now we're going to talk about this in just a little bit more. That you can hear our grandfather clock there, but talk about this a little bit more, where we find out that the chickens would not come, and so they were destroyed. One of the interesting things about chickens in the free range is they will not chase after their little chicks to protect them. When trouble comes, the deal is the chicks have to run to mom. I mean, she can't get around to all of her chickens, and so she'll make a sound, and they'll know that sound, and the chickens will run to her and hide under her, and she'll protect them. And that's really the way it is. And what's interesting is some of the chickens, the little chicks, I should say, when they hear their mom scream and say, basically, come here, I need to protect you, they'll panic and paralyze, or they'll run away from mother, figuring out that they can save themselves. And man, what a comparison that is to the Lord. And that's what the Lord is doing here. He's calling out to Jerusalem, and he's saying, danger's coming. Please flee to me, come to me, and let me protect you. But they would not. Now, Jesus knew something about the danger that they did not. What Jesus is talking about is an event that's going to happen 30 years or so later, because in AD 70, after the Jewish rebellions, Jesus has gone to heaven. After the Jewish rebellions in Jerusalem and in Israel in particular, some guys have gone up to Masada and given their life, and the Jews are rebelling. They're rebelling against Rome, and so the Domitian family down in Rome sends a man named Titus, one of the boys. Titus brings an army up to Jerusalem, and he destroys it and levels it completely. And that's what the Lord was talking about. He said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I wanted to gather you under my wings and protect you, but you would not. And the reason he was doing that is because he heard the clamor of Rome and what they were saying, and he knew their hearts that they were going to come and destroy this city, but Jerusalem turned their back on the Lord. And sometimes that's like us. The Lord calls out to us, and we paralyze, or we freak out, or we don't think about it. Or what I find more often than not is that we try to save ourselves. And that's not what to do. That's what the children in Jerusalem did. They did not. They refused it. And they were destroyed some years later. Well, I think it's interesting that God compares himself, or Jesus compares himself, to a mother. And I think it'd be good for you to hear from a couple mothers today. So I'm going to invite you to meet my mother and then my wife, and we'll wrap things up for a little bit. But again, happy Mother's Day. God bless you. Let's go. I'm going to take you back to see my mom here real quick. Hey Mom, how are you?
I'm doing great.
This is my mother, if you've never met her, and this is the lady responsible for raising me and my grandkids. I wanted you to meet her because she is one of those mother hens for us in the right way. She was always so protective of us and always provided just the perfect home life for us to grow up in. So I thought I'd just let you meet her and let her tell you just a couple of things that's special to her.
There's so many things that are special. I want to show you this thing that Steve and Brenda, this was one of my favorite verses when we started having children. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. We always wanted our kids to be truthful and honest, and of course walk in truth. That's like walking with the Lord, because he is the way, the truth, and the life. And so we would teach them scriptures. The first scripture that Steve learned was 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. But the way he learned it was, put your cares on top because he likes me. And that was very special, and I've never forgotten that day. So let me encourage you, moms, to teach your children scripture, make them memorize it, and they'll never forget it, and that's for sure. And then I've been so blessed over the years. My husband and I raised 3 children. I have a 6'2" baby, and he has his master's in music, and he was Steve's music director in Lebanon at one time when he was starting the church up there. So very proud of our children. We tried to do our best to raise them in the Lord. And I have a daughter. She has a beautiful voice. She sings, and she's like my best friend. And I've just been very blessed. Had a sweet husband. He was 27 when he was saved, 30 when he surrendered to preach. like you, Tony, with 3 kids. We sold everything we had and went to Baptist Bible College, and we were in the ministry for 40 some years, I think, altogether. And he died with cancer then in 2011. But I've been very blessed with grandchildren. This picture on my wall here makes me think of our grandchildren that we had. This is Bear, or that's probably Brooks. This is my husband. This is me. We didn't have anything. I mean, the bricks were here in the bed. They had newspaper at the window and birds and a chicken,
Yeah,
a
that's
rooster right there, and a wood-burning stove. But look at their faces. They're so happy and so joyful, and it just makes my heart so glad to see great-grandchildren and grandchildren. I have 9 grandchildren. I'm going on my 10th great-grandchild. So we've been very blessed, and I just wish you all a happy Mother's Day. And if there's any single mothers out there, honey, you and God are a majority. Don't let the world tell you how to raise your children. Do it God's way. We literally, when I remember the first time I ever held Steve, I looked at him and I thought, oh my word, how am I going to raise this little thing? And after my husband got saved, which was just shortly after he was born, we started learning the scriptures in Proverbs. And Proverbs, literally, we took the precepts and the concepts and everything and actually really raised our children. That way, actually, we didn't raise our children. God's Word did. And we would learn those things and teach them to our children. You know, and I also, something else that might help you young mothers is there's a big difference between discipline and punishment. You can punish a child, but you need to discipline them with love, and it makes a big difference. And I know that there's so many mothers. I look at the young mothers in our church here, and they're just great. I just love every one of them, and the grandmothers and the great-grandmothers. So I've been very blessed, and I've been very blessed with my son. It's a great joy to know he's still walking in truth. His son's a pastor, and all our kids are Christians. And it all started with my husband being saved. So I've had a very bountiful life. God bless each one of you, and I love every one of you, and I miss you. Bye-bye.
Well, that's special, and that's the kind of life that I had. We weren't perfect, still aren't perfect, but my parents gave us every advantage to live in the truth. And you have to do that with your kids too. Give them every advantage. Give them the best ground possible to grow up in. That's what I was privileged to have. And we're still not perfect, but we're sure trying. God bless you guys. Thanks, Mom. I appreciate it.
You're
Love
welcome.
you. Happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great visit with Mom. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to ask Brenda to come in here now. She's another one of the precious mothers that I admire, and of course she's the gal that's raised our babies. And I can tell you that you are completely a mother hen. When I read this story about how a mother will give her life for her babies, I think of you. And while you were listening to that teaching, what was going through your mind? Just let our congregation know.
I guess I was just thinking of when they were little and they would get in trouble or yell mommy, mommy, and your instinct is to just want to envelop them and protect them, and that mother hen instinct comes out where you want to claw somebody's eyeballs out if they do something wrong to your baby.
I can verify that. Yeah, you know, it's of course the book of Proverbs says that moms are like bears, right? Mm-hmm. And it's better to, you know, it's easier to rob a mother bear of her cub than it is to deal with a mom and her kids. Yeah. And I've seen you protect your kids that way. I think another funny thing, we always tease you about this with the kids, is you're their attorney. Yes. And most of the time you're representing them against me, right? Now, we never would let the kids divide us. We were smarter than that, but it would be interesting to me how that I would, you know, dads are more impatient than moms are for sure. I would get impatient with the kids and you would say, now, honey, let me, and I'm like, okay, here comes the attorney. You are an attorney for the kids, aren't you?
I think so. I think sometimes as moms we feel like we're the their unspoken voice because we want to be the voice of reason, maybe.
So you're saying dads are unreasonable?
No, I'm just saying
We are
moms
sometimes.
tend to look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at it a little bit more, you consider all the aspects of it before when you make your decision.
Yeah.
And sometimes dads are just
Angry?
and fast. They just kind of make that judgment
And
real
I agree
quick.
I agree with that. It's kind of interesting that you say that because if Jesus is like a mother, he kind of represents us to the Father. He's kind of our attorney, isn't he? And I don't know that the Father would react too quickly, but it seems like that he would, because Jesus gets in the middle of us and the Father says, okay, hold on, I forgave them, they're in good shape. What's that saying, Mama, that you talk about in the home? The husband is the thermometer and the wife is the thermostat, is that right?
And now I've got
The
this-
wife sets the temperature?
Right. The wife is the thermostat in the home. Because I feel that we decide the temperature, the atmosphere
Yeah.
for the home.
You set the temperature, yeah.
That it's always calm and collected. And
No, I agree with that. I think that, and I think as a husband, I know when I come home, I can sense that. And it's a good thing that you do for me and our kids, so that I really appreciate that. So give me one favorite memory of you raising the kids. A favorite vacation, a favorite instance, or a funny instance. I think of Daniel and his big wheel and his Batman helmet.
probably the funniest memory, aside from our trip where we lost our
Luggage
luggage carrier on the interstate, would be the time that I was upstairs doing laundry. Our laundry room was upstairs, and the kids were all in their rooms. Their rooms were like in the corner of the house, and they were messing around. And I said, "Clean your rooms," but I didn't enforce it. It was like you say it, but you didn't really mean it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I realized they weren't doing it. They were all messing around playing, and I said, "Delayed disobedience is delayed disobedience."
No, you said delayed disobedience is disobedience.
Yeah,
What you meant to say was
this delayed
obedience.
is disobedience. And all three of the kids stopped and looked at me, and they wanted to laugh, but they were afraid to because they knew I was mad. And then all of a sudden, they started snickering and laughing. I said, "Oh, you know what I mean?" And I had to leave. I had to walk downstairs to laugh because I knew I was wrong.
Yeah. You couldn't let the kids see you laugh, could you?
Right.
No.
And I should have, because we
That's
need to
fine.
let them see that we're
Yeah.
human.
Yeah. You've been a great mother for our children, and you know I've said this often. If it hadn't been for you, our kids would have been a mess. I'm telling you, it's really the truth. I came across a story this week that I want to end with that made me think of you. It's a story of a forest ranger who was fighting a big forest fire, and I mean everything was burned up, and it took him days to get it out, kind of like we had here locally. And a group of firefighters, when the flames were out and the smoke was billowing up, everything was done, they were kind of resetting. They were heading back to their truck with all their gear, and they noticed in the road there, the dirt road that they were going down, that there was a big dead bird, and it apparently had been burned up. And they started having feelings toward, like, that poor bird didn't make it, and we're really sorry. And you know, no one likes to see a dead wildlife. So one of the firefighters came up to it and noticed it, looked down at it, and thought, well, I'll kick it out to the side of the road. He kicked it, and there were 4 little chickens that ran out.
Aww.
And they were still alive. And it struck the firefighters that this mother hen had laid on her kids through the whole fire and died. And when the firefighters came, kicked them away, they were startled by these little babies that started running around because they saw the light. And I think that describes a lot of our mothers. I know it describes this one. I know it describes my mother. And I bet that it describes you and your family. So I want to ask you just to take time today to breathe a little bit and have a good time with your mom today. Love on her, because I bet you she would give her life for you. So you honor her with your life. We're going to go from the serious to the fun now. We're going to end up with a video called The Parent Rap. It deals with both mom and dad, but the mom part in it's really funny. So take just a little bit of time to do this. I love you, Victory. We'll be together soon, as we'll talk about in a few weeks. May 31st is our goal. We'll talk about that soon to let you know some of the details. But enjoy this rap. Don't turn it off. Have a little bit of fun. Happy Mother's Day. God bless you.
Don't make me count to 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
It's the parent rap, y'all. We may spend most of our time chasing toddlers down, but we still know how to rock the hizzle.
I don't even know what you just said.
We used to be cool, back in the day, back on the block, watching PG-13 movies, staying up way after dark. Then we had a couple shorties, and now we're really flossy, cause now we be rolling with our own little posse in the minivan, or in our little wagon. Let me throw it to moms, cause the little one is sagging.
I used to bling it up, I used to dress real shoot. Now I accessorize the food that's already been chewed, and that's alright. I make this diaper bag look good when I'm walking through the mall trying to wrangle my brood. My PB&Js will set your world on fire. I could make you mac and cheese blindfolded on a wire. I'm wiping the doo-doo, kissing the boo-boos, got them eyes in the back of my head. I see all you do, using your full name so you know I ain't playing. And that's why all my kiddos, they keep saying,
Mom, mom, she's the bomb, rocking all night till the break of dawn. Cooking in peace so I'll grow up strong. Got my second seatbelt if we crash head on.
Dad, he's the man, working real hard to support the clan. Traded in his Porsche for an old sedan, raising those brows if we get out of hand.
When it comes to Candyland, I'm a stone cold player. Helping out with the homework, I'm an algebra slayer. Wrestle car seats into place without spilling my mug. If I tuck you in at night, you'll be as snug as a bug. Then I'm off in the morning to make that cheese. You may not know this yet, but it doesn't grow on trees. Now mama, take it please. What? Take it.
I'm dropping timers like the hot potty training on my tots, washing all the pans and pots, tying little shoes and knots, giving knowledge to your brain like if you're friendship off a train. You don't have to do the same, now get your toys out of the rain. I'm cleaning every spill, cutting coupons like a bill. If you need parental skill, now you know we are for real. You don't think our rhymes are ill, boy? Then you're grounded for a mill.
Mom, she's legit, making us chill when we pitch a fit, telling us to share and never to hit. If you can't say something nice, put a sock in it.
Dad, he's the guy, never gets tired of playing I Spy, with a constant barrage of kids asking why, and he always pretends he needs another tie.
You know money doesn't grow on trees. Why buy the cow if the milk is free? This won't hurt you as much as it hurts me. If you want dessert, eat another veggie. Close that door, you weren't born in a stable. Sit up straight and kiss your Aunt Mabel. Close your mouth when you chew, get your elbows off the table. Mom and Dad of the year, check it, that's the label.
It's the parent rap, y'all.
And it's a parent.
We're great parents. Mom and Daddy in the house.
Mom and Daddy own the house. Mom and Daddy need to clean the house.
Keep your hands to yourself, boy. Don't make me stop this beat. I'll do it. I'll pull this beat right over.